this is Charles Richard Gaming, and I've got another 9th Age battle report. I got a game in this last week against Dreadles. I actually got 2 games against Dreadles. I only have 1 battle report, though. I was playing my Emperor Sandstorm. It's a sort of similar list to what I played at Quarterhammer. I've been kind of testing on a couple different lists. I haven't got as many games I would like to have gotten in the last month, but I'm kind of ramping up. The games I'm playing as we head towards Buckeye Battles. So the list I played, it's got a Marshal with Imperial Seal, Crown of the Wizard King, Lucky Charm, he's the general with Great Tactician. Then I've got a Knight Commander on a Young Griff, he's got a 1-up, 3-up against Flaming, Push and Swiftness, and the Sandstorm. Then I've got a Wizard Arcane Engine, he's just got the Magical Heirloom for that 1 extra spell, and the Dragonfire Gem. He's rocking Divination, which is really nice when you have a Crown of Wizard King, because now you get an extra 3 inches on all your spells. And then I have 20 light infantry with crossbows, champion with long rifle, 20 light infantry with handguns, 2 things of 10 light infantry, 1 with crossbows, 1 with handguns, and then just 1 unit of heavy infantry, just plain heavy infantry. Then I have 24 Imperial Guard with full command and the Household Standard, 5 Riders, 4 Knights of Sun Griffin with lances, full command and the Banner of Speed, 5 Knights, 5 Imperial Rangers, a steam tank, and a cannon. So I think it's quite a good list. I don't know if I'm going to run it Cornerhammer though. So the draw list that I played against had 2 assassins, pretty similar except one had the Elixir Shadows, one had the Ranger Boots, a Dread Prince on a dragon with the Call of Yama, just a repeater crossbow and a great weapon with blessed inscriptions. He also had an Oracle rocking. He says cosmology, but he actually did it with witchcraft. He's probably messed around this list since we played. 2 things of 5 Dark Riders, 2 things of Dread Legionnaires, 122, 123, 5 Dark Acolytes with Yama, and they had the champions, so they also had Oculism spells when we played. And then he has Divine Altar. The bearers on the altar have paired weapons, a single Raptor Chariot, and then 23 Tower Guard with the Banner of Guard Decos, so it's pretty scary. The spells I had from Divination were Unerring Strike, Fate's Judgment, Stars Align, and I believe Portent of Doom, but I didn't use it. And then I had Altered Sight from Cosmology from my Magical Arrow. So the way deployment, we actually tried blind deployment because the first round of Buckeye Battle is always blind deployment. So in the room there, I have 10 handgunners. Next to that, my steam tank, and then my 20 handgunners. I don't know why I chose to put both handgunners on each side. It would make more sense to split them up. And then there's a forest in the middle of the board, or middle of my deployment. I've got my General and Imperial Guard in there. Next to the forest is my Arcane Engine. Next to them is my 20 crossbows with the champion with the long rifle. Behind the heavy infantry right there in the middle. And again, the heavy infantry are just sword and board. I think they're spearman model, but just sword and board. Behind them is a cannon. And then the Rangers are not deployed yet, but the crossbowmen are deployed next to the hill, and the Knights of the Sun Griffin are deployed on the hill with the Riders to the right of that. So in the middle, this was actually, we had to change something. Like I put the pieces of train on the board before I put the blind. Actually, no, I set the blind deployment up, and then I set up like the screens, and then I set up the train, and that was a mistake. Because the train kind of got bunched on the sides. In the middle, I just put like a little, there's like a little piece of impassable train, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is gonna be really hard for the Dreadle player. You know, like it's gonna be really hard for my friend here. So I ended up putting a forest in the middle, which I thought was a little more of a challenge for both of us. We were playing hold the center as our objective, so the marker goes right in that forest. Starting with his deployment on the left there, he's got his Dark Acolytes. And then 5 Dark Raiders next to his dragon, and also the Chariot is next to his dragon. The Tower Guard are next to the dragon on the right in this picture, and then you can see them again right there in the big one. They have the Assassin with the Ranger Boots on the corner. Next to them is one of the units of Spearmen. I believe the Divine Altar is just sitting on its own right now. And then, you know, between the 2 units of Spearmen, and then to finish out his deployment on the right there, he's got another unit of Dark Raiders. So, decent amount of bodies for an elf army. The dragon's pretty scary. I do have 2 cannons. I was hoping to do finish it in with that. So, and then this is just kind of showing our vanguards a little bit. I barely moved up my riders. I knew he was gonna, or I didn't know, because that's interesting about Blind Department is there's no way to guarantee turn 1. You just roll off for it. So, and then that's how our vanguards and scouting looks right there in the middle. Dread Elf turn 1. So I made a huge mistake. I put these guys 18 inches away from the Dark Acolytes, and he was on a hill, and he charged them, and he made that charge with easy because they're Yamos, so they're all like movement 10. And they had a reroll even. I don't even think he needed a reroll. So unfortunately, huge mistake here. And this is where like I would have wanted to put them in the forest, and that would have made like a ton of sense. But I actually believe I did my scouting before we did the train change, and I would have felt like that would have been cheesy, just been like, well, now that we move these train around, let me put my let me put my rangers right in this forest right here. So I decided not to do that, but I should have put them just back. I shouldn't have put them so close. So still my fault, but nothing I can do now. He moves up like so, not too aggressively with any of his cavalry. The Divine Altar joins in with the Spearmen, and the Dragon moves up pretty far. Honestly, he's in the forest, so he benefits from the soft cover rule now, which is nice. But still got cannons. I still have cannons, but he took the spell from Witchcraft that stopped shooting, and he got it off turn 1, and I felt really sad about that, because now I was like, oh crap, what do I do against this dragon? And then between his chariot and I believe his Dark Raiders, he kills a couple handgunners, which is okay. And he kills a rider over here on this side of the board. I think this is his Dark Raiders again. And then the Imperial Rangers get wiped out, and he goes into the handgunners, which are being proxied right now as Halberdiers, and that's really bad. So, EoS turn 1. Yeah, I really didn't move up anywhere. The orders I put out were ready and fire on both my big blocks of light infantry. At this point, I remember I was just trying to get my Arcane Engine in range to maybe throw some divination spells at the dragon. Because divination spells are pretty good against large monsters, especially Unerring Strike. However, I couldn't get any spells off, or if I was getting spells off, they were really low, and I couldn't. And he was able to spell them. I do a couple wounds to the spearmen, and then my handgunners kill all 5 of the Dark Raiders, which is great. That's a good turn. I moved my riders up kind of aggressively. They're like 10 inches from these guys, and they're able to do 1 wound right there. Obviously benefiting from cover. And then I shoot my steam tank cannon, because that's a functioning cannon at the dragon, but it misfires turn 1, so I just take a wound, but that's unfortunate. And then the cavalry looks kind of weird right here, but they're Yama, so they're not suffering any wounds or anything. This is just showing the direction of the base. And they charge onto the ruins and go right into my handgunners, and they were within 10 inches, so they had no problem closing the door there. So feeling really sad about this, because this is an expensive unit of light infantry, and they basically only got to shoot 1 thing. Man, he turns my cannon off again. Turn 2, it's like he's just getting high rolls in his phase, and I'm getting low rolls in mine for dispelling and casting. He puts 1 wound on the Knights of Sun Griffin. I want to say for magic, but I don't know how I would have done it. But one guy takes a wound somehow. Or that was actually the movement debuff. That's what that was. He kills a ton of my light infantry, but they stand. So at least those dudes aren't going anywhere, but they're still probably going to all die in the next phase anyway. The start of EoS turn 2, I'm on a hill. It's a little bit of a far charge, but I believe I charge my Knights of Sun Griffin in one of his spearman blocks. It's probably like a 17 or an 18. And he decides to flee, and then I fail my redirect, so I just go forward like this. I rolled really high. I rolled like a 2 6s, something like that. My riders took another panic test last phase, and they started fleeing, and they went off the board. And then this is a good shot of what the table looks like. So since my Knights Sun Griffin failed to charge and move forward, I had to use one of my orders, which was fine because my big unit of light infantry couldn't really do anything, and my general was too far away to give the other unit of crossbows ready and fire. I gave them on the double so they could march up and block the tower guard from charging the knights in the flank, because they can just barely see my end of the base. Shooting doesn't really do all that much. Magic doesn't do anything. Again, I just can't get any spells off. So he charges both of his assassins out of his 2 units. I believe he gave himself maximized rolls from the altar, just to be sure. And this was something that he wanted. This is like something the list is like trying to do. So this was like a fun test game. But he wanted to see how these assassins would kind of work just as like solo pairs. Jumping out of units and just kind of going and stuff. So it's interesting. They're pretty scary. They're both, bloody murders. They both got distracting and 4-up saves in combat. So it should be a tough fight. These guys failed took a DT test, 1 wound, and they panicked, so they're fleeing. And then this is what the middle of the board looks like. He also put his dragon into my heavy infantry. He could just barely fit the dragon in there. It was like, it was so small, but he was definitely was able to fit in there. So, into combat. So my Knight Commander isn't challenged. He challenges with the assassin on my flank, and I accept with my champion. He does just 1 wound to me, and I do 1 wound to him between like the Griff's attacks and the champion's attacks. Because thankfully it's not too hard to hit him. It's like 4s. I'd say I guess it's like 5s to hit him, but it's easy to wound him because he's resilient. It's 3. He does 1 wound back in the challenge because he's like hitting on 2-ups, wounding on 3-ups with like his poison, always wounds on 3-ups, and then he has he has like -2 AP. He's got AP2. So I have 4-ups, so I only take 1 wound. He puts 1 wound on my general too, even though we got 3-up, and we put 2 wounds on his other chick. And ends up just being a push combat. So that's interesting. EoS turn 3. I move my cannon towards his chariot. I want to try and kill that thing. And then again, this is what's looking like. And then it's kind of important to remember that my Imperial Guard are sitting under a forest. It was just a really annoying forest, so we moved it. But currently they are in a forest. Yep. And I also charged if you can see up in the top of that picture, I charged my light infantry into combat here. Because they come in with a static 4 combat rise, a flank, a rank in the flank, and a rank. So it's pretty sweet. I was kind of hoping here just make some saves in the combat, and maybe just break these guys with combat res, because especially if I can get the one in the flank to flee, then I can possibly get a really good charge against that unit of spearmen. I finally get a divination. I finally get an unerring strike off, but of course it's not against the dragon. I think I killed like 8 tower guard here, so that was pretty sweet. And then combat happens, and this was a real disappointment, honestly. So the one in the challenge, the one on the flank of the challenge, does like 3 more wounds, and I just can't. I only make 1 4-up, so he kills my champion before I get to do anything to him. And then the one that was just like facing my knights kills my Knight Commander again. It does like another 3 wounds. I've got a 3-up save, and I just can't make any saves. I can't only make 1 save. So he kills my Knight Commander and the champion same round, and then he sticks, and then he gets to push his whole Divine Altar into my Knights Sun Griffin now, and what a bad turn. And then he also charges his Tower Guard and his chariot into my Imperial Guard. And remember, I'm in a forest because I'm kind of relying on my bodyguard, and I don't know why I was in there. It's not like he has that much shooting. It was just a very bad move in general. And this is what the rest of the board looks like. He wanted to charge his dragon into the Imperial Guard as well, but he didn't realize that his Tower Guard were wider than me, so he ends up not really fail charging or let him take the charge back, and you just put it in the forest instead. he turns the shooting off on the cannon again. It's like the cannon has had one shot against the Divine Altar, and he made his fourth save. So cannon is doing real well this game. And then yeah, this is impact hits, do 2 wounds to Imperial Guard, and then he puts his 2 lances on my general, and he does 2 wounds. I can't make any 4-up armor saves, even with my reroll. I have my 1 reroll from the Lucky Charm, and I fill that armor save. And then he starts going to work with the Tower Guard, and they don't do too many more wounds, I believe. I think he had not the greatest roll. Like, yeah, it looks like he does like another 3 or 4 wounds. I actually strike back, and I do a bunch of wounds. And I had Guiding Light on this unit, and they stick. They were down by like 2 or 3, but I'm able to stick. And then in my turn, I'm able to put this. I'm also able to do 1 wound. I only needed to do 1 more wound onto the chariot, and I get it. And then I'm able to put my steam tank into the Tower Guard, which is amazing. Because now I can probably save the Imperial Guard here, and that's big. Because they're like my biggest point sink right now, or my biggest amount of points in the field. I turned my light infantry. They've been taking a couple wounds, so I just kind of reformed them, moved them within 15. They're going to try and kill that Master Assassin. Now that they, and obviously, sorry, I should have said this. In my turn, they kill like 2 Knights of Sun Griffin, and they make my everything flee. Nothing gets caught down. And the knight rallies, surprisingly. The 1 single knight rallies, and then the light infantry keep fleeing. So they're just kind of on the side of the hill, but that Divine Altar unit's really close. I am able to kill the Master Assassin, so that was quite nice. I've gotten 2 of his characters at this point, so that's pretty good. And then impact hits do 5 wounds, which was great. I think I rolled up 5 exactly, and they all wounded, which was awesome. So that was that's a huge help, obviously. I was debating between if I wanted to wait to do the grinds or if I wanted to do the impact hits, because I don't know, it makes me nervous. But I went with the impact hits, and they worked really well for me. And then I'm able to break him and run him down. So that was good. Got a lot of points there. But unfortunately, that leaves my Arcane Engine vulnerable. I was debating not overrunning for a second, but then I realized, again, this unit's in a forest, so this dragon's going to come in, and it's going to beat the Imperial Guard, and then it's going to get my wizard. So I just went after them. Hoped that maybe he could fail the charge, but he doesn't, because I want to say I was like 18 inches away to do like an unerring strike, and he just, that's not very far when you have Yema on a dragon. I think that's in +9, so yeah, that's like a 9. So he easily makes that charge. And then he charges here with the Divine Altar unit with Spearman into my Sun Griffin. Can't really do anything about that. And then pretty much on his last turn, he does. It kind of got really fast at the end because there really weren't too many things to play with. Magic wasn't really complicated either. So he just by light infantry rally on my turn 5, and I turned them in a way that they're too far from the cannon to cause a panic check. He just causes my cannons, that's why the cannon slipped over. He moves his dragon kind of far away from my steam tank, which kind of moved towards the center of the board on my turn 5 too. I don't know if I wanted to shoot the Divine Altar, because the dragon went off the board on his turn 5, so I couldn't shoot it on my turn 5. My wizard's dead. And then on turn 6, I am able to get a combo charge into one of the Spearman units in the middle with my Imperial Guard and my steam tank. And this is what the rest of the board looks like. So I've got my 2 units of light infantry alive. He's got his Dark Raiders up top. They rallied on like turn 4 or something like that. And then he's got his Divine Altar with his Wizard. And I don't know which unit of Spearman was bigger. It's kind of hard to tell at this point. But they were so close in size and points. It doesn't really matter. We are able to beat the Spearman on my turn 6. And this is where the game ends. So unfortunately, I moved to the middle too late. I find that the new Hold the Center is a little bit harder, a lot harder really for shooting armies, because we're so reluctant sometimes to move towards the middle. So I lost the game 14-6, and then I lost the objective because he was able to build up 2 counters when his tower guard was sitting there, and then I actually maybe got 1 at the end of the game, but I don't even know if we counted it. So I basically had 0 markers, and he had 2, so he wins. There was a chance, I think, on my turn 5 when I charged with the Imperial Guard, and had I gotten in, I could have possibly broken the Spearmen and then made them flee and then tied the objective, but I didn't make that charge turn 5, so I didn't get the objective. So this was a fun game. It was a pretty friendly, relaxed test game. The guy was he's definitely looking at, I think, taking this list of Buckeye Battle. It's definitely interesting. It's way different than like Adrenal list I've seen in a long time. I mean, who takes dragons? But I think the dragon character is pretty powerful, honestly. He scared me a lot, and the witchcraft was great. He just turned off my cannon. If you're worried about cannons, just turn them off, just to make them not shoot, and then you don't have to worry them. So yeah, good on my friend. Good win for the Dread Elves. Empire Sunstar are going to have to try and redeem themselves. I want to thank everybody for watching, and have a good one. I'll have another battle port soon.